Hello, you dirty potters. How are you today? Welcome to another episode of Glaze Review, where I take glazes off the shelf and test them for you before they even get into your hands. In today's episode, we are testing Micro Champagne SW215 from the Mayco Stoneware line. This is a micro crystal glaze, and many of the micro crystal glazes that we've been testing here on the channel recently, because I think they sent us about 4 or 5 of these, have been bangers. Almost all of them have been good, with the exception of some of them working on brown clay. Keep in mind that this glaze is technically not dinnerware safe, that is separate from food safe, although in both cases you're essentially going to be making sure that they are both not on the portion of the pot that touches food or food safe surfaces. This means, for the high majority of our tests, we're going to be glazing the outside of the pot, but we're going to be using a liner glaze or a food safe glaze on the inside of the pot, while putting this glaze that we're testing today on the outside. Firstly, let's go over our gambit. In today's video, we will be testing it on a porcelain white clay. I feel good about testing it on this actually because this has a crack that goes all the way through the bottom of the clay body, so I don't feel bad about using this as a test style whatsoever. We're also going to do our consistency tests on these 2 porcelain clay bodies right here. These are just 2 porcelain bowls, but I like to do a double test on stuff, so not only do I like to see this white clay, brown clay, but I like to use it in the same way 2 different times with the same type of product just to see if it has a lot of consistency. I don't want the glaze to come out differently on this than it does on this. And for our last experiment, we're going to be doing a very dirty clay body. This is a white clay body mixed with a brown clay body, mixed with dragon fruit, and it has lots of grog in it. This is a very, very reclaimed clay body. Considering that this glaze is made for stoneware, I think it'll probably survive. But we're gonna have a good texture test, as well as a good clarity test on this one right here. Unfortunately, we're not gonna do any combos because we really can't mix things with crystal glazes without them running a lot. With that being said, let's get testing. Okay, and as we usually do, let's take a look at what we glazed and how we glazed everything before we put it in the kiln. All of these testers are going to be put in the kiln and fired at cone 6 oxidation. I did not water the glaze down whatsoever, nor am I doing any holds or anything like that. This is a straight cone 6 up and down. Once it reaches top temperature, the heat work just goes straight down. This is our porcelain white clay test style with 3 layers of Micro Champagne from the Mayco company and the Micro Crystal Glaze line. This only has the glaze on the outside. There's nothing on the inside, nor is there anything on the bottom because there's such a large crack in this, I was afraid it would go through and drip onto my shelves. So it's only glazed on the outside. After our white clay test style, we now have our brown or redstone clay test style. This one also has 3 layers. It has a little bit more on the top than it does the bottom, but I don't think that will matter much, seeing as these micro crystal glazes are fairly consistent. As long as you don't go over 4 layers, you seem to be okay. So this one is our redstone clay test style. Now this one here is very interesting to me because this is a very, very dirty clay body. This is 3 different clay bodies from a recycled clay. It has glaze on the bottom. I put a liner glaze on the inside just in case it comes out as a banger. I can sell it on the website earthnationceramics.com, and it also has 3 layers on the outside. Granted, I did have to put a little bit more layering. You can still see it's a little wet right there, just because I needed to get in the crevices of the texture. But this will be a really good texturized test style. We can see how this glaze will run over texture. These 2 over here are our white porcelain clay test style consistency tests. They are both 3 layers deep and very, very evenly coated. So not only is this our consistency test, These two will also be donated to the Empty Bowls project. So technically speaking, Mayco has now been a supporter of Empty Bowls. I don't care, Mayco. I don't care if you wanted to support the food closets of Sacramento or not. You are now doing that. Okay, I'm sorry. Sorry about it. You shouldn't give me Glaze. That'd actually be crazy if they were like anti-social services. Here's all of our tests. And with that being said, let's put them in the kiln. Okay, now that everything's out of the kiln, let's take a look. This is our white porcelain textile with micro champagne from the Mayco company on it. Ooh, that's hot. That is so hot. That is so hot. My general rule with a lot of glaze tests in general, not just with company glazes, but with my own glazes, is that the first time I test them, I usually put about 3 layers on. Thereafter, I put more layers on until I find the limit, going up to about 4.5 to 5. So this is just 3 layers right here. And this came out pretty good. You can see where I put more glaze on or where it ran a bit more at the bottom, you get a lot more crystallization right here. But the very top here, where it started to run, or at least where gravity didn't have as much of an effect, you can see that it didn't have as much crystallization. The color palette does change a little bit if you look really closely. You can see that it goes from this kind of champagne tan to a tinge of bluish purple, right about there. Let's check out our Redstone textile and see if these mimic anything that we saw on this. This is micro champagne with our Redstone textile. I'm actually pleasantly surprised at this because thus far, none of the micro crystal glazes from Mayco have worked on any, and I truly do mean any. If you've been keeping up with the episodes and you've been seeing me test these on both white and brown clay, you know that almost none of these glazes work on a redstone clay body. This is the first, and I truly do mean the first time, it's come out even passably acceptable on a redstone clay body. So I'm pretty happy with this one right here. Granted, you definitely see where it congealed a bit more and where it runs. The same pattern that we got on the white or porcelain clay body. You can definitely see it's a bit more champagne, you get a bit more blue. Up here it's a bit more champagne, I suppose. The red iron clay body is affecting the glaze. And then it comes down here a bit more to this blue that we mentioned earlier. Let's check out our consistency test, because now that we have our white and our redstone clay body textiles, let's check out some more of the thicker application textiles that we are a bit more brazen on. These two bowls are micro champagne with a liner glaze of enamel white on the inside and micro champagne on the outside. Again, you can see that variation, you can see that champagne. As it runs down, you can start seeing this type of blue, and where it starts to congeal, where it starts to kind of gather up on certain textures, you can really see all the crystals kind of gang together, right? And the thicker it is, it seems like the more crystals you get, or at least the parts in which it runs a little bit better. No crystals up here, right? At least where the liner glaze touches the rest of the glaze, but once it runs to a certain extent, you can see lots and lots and lots of crystals here. And then when you get down here to the foot where it starts to kind of gather up, you can see it's just a bunch of crystals. This is perfect, and on top of that, our consistency test came out pretty good as well. This came out almost exactly the same. Actually, I think the one on the left here came out a bit better. The crystals on this one, for some strange reason, must have gotten a little more heat or something. This, personally, is a very good sign for consistency. You know it's one of the things I value. You know it's one of the things I value on the channel, is if a glaze works good the first time, horrible the second time, and okay the third time, I don't want that. I want it to work good, or at least okay, every single time, so at least I know what I'm getting for the consistency of my work, especially if I'm selling to my customers on my website. But this here is really good. It's a really good sign for consistency. And we see that again. The last time I'll probably mention it, but you see it again. It goes from that champagne all the way down here, and it starts to turn that kind of blue once it goes to the champagne. Now you can definitely see the liner glaze touches it a bit up here, but this is the enamel white from another company that had sent it to me, and the enamel white kind of overtakes everything. It mainly just turns stuff white, but it didn't affect the glaze so much that it ran off the pot, which is a really good thing, because it was getting close. You can see the difference in the feet too. Like, one of them has way more clearance than this one. It's because this one didn't have too much of a combination. But this one, you can clearly see where the other glaze met this crystal glaze. And you can see how much more it ran. Okay, now let's check out our actual stoneware textiles. As I mentioned before, most of the stuff I'm testing right now is porcelain. However, these here are stoneware. This is micro champagne on a stoneware clay body. You know, I can safely say that I do like this a lot more than the porcelain textile, because this has a bit more of a blue variation to it, but I'm getting some pitting with this, or some crawling, I suppose. It's not really pitting. I'm getting crawling here, 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 a little bit here, and it happened over here as well, a little bit here, a little bit here, a little bit here. So I don't think this is anywhere near a perfect glaze. But I will say, if I were to pick either stoneware or the porcelain textile, I would probably pick the porcelain, just because it seems like a cleaner clay body, and it doesn't seem to me that this glaze in particular, because the other ones seem to work fine on stoneware and porcelain, plays very well with some stuff or whatever I have in the stoneware. And just as a side note, I usually use B-Mix with Grog for a lot of my stoneware textiles, and I usually use Mayco porcelain. But you can see the color variation. I like this color better, but I'm not willing to get this color if it means a bit of crawling, if I have to sacrifice it for this color. This looks a lot more creamy, champagne-y. This is kind of what they promised me on the textile. However, this, to me, is just more eye-catching, because people just seem to like the color blue a lot more. And you can see that a major difference in color. I mean a major difference. Now, I did have one more textile for micro champagne, but, hear me out, but it did break. Listen, the way it broke was... if you could just you don't want to stand on that, baby. If you could just, there you go, sit right here, that would be great. Let's move this out the way. Can I have it sit down? Oh, you want to sit on it? Okay. Well, I've never been one to oh my god, okay. Alright, you don't like it. Alright. Hold on. Yeah. Okay. Oh, those are Dada's notes. Okay, they're okay. Alright. Oh, yep. Just break that, honestly. It's unfortunate that it broke soon after that, because it really was a good glaze. You can see the micro champagne glaze poking through the glaze body of the dragon fruit clay. And I think that was our tester, was to see, because you could see dragon fruit right here, was to see if the dragon fruit clay body would change it over whatsoever. And it seems like it did. Unfortunately, we didn't get as much crystallization as we wanted to, and we definitely didn't get the clarity that we usually get with this type of glaze. Even on the other stoneware type glazes like this, these have big old crystals in them. As for this one, not so much. This one is just dragon fruit, kind of just poked through it and it called it a day. Although it did break, so, you know, click like for the RIP. Well, thank you, Dirty Potters, for joining me today. You know, I will say, out of all the micro crystal glazes we've been testing from this new line from Mayco, the only one I truly didn't like too much is micro jade, and that's not even like a commentary on the glaze itself. The glaze was good. It didn't really produce the amount of crystal that I wanted, it more so turned green and runny than it did make crystals. But every other glaze that we've had from the Micro Crystal line from Mayco has turned out a banger, especially Micro Ash, especially was a Micro Cerulean, turned out amazing. Those are two of my tops, two of my favorites, realistically. And this is no exception. This one's pretty good. If I can get this every single time on my pieces, I think they would eat this up. This would be fantastic. Well, thank you, Dirty Potters, for joining me today. If you like this kind of content, make sure you click all those like buttons so Mayco knows I'm doing a good job, so we can make more videos like this and they can keep on giving us glazes. Hopefully you have a good day. Good luck on your next art projects, and I will see you, Dirty Potters, next week.
Thank you for your patronage.
Oh my lord! You ever sneeze so hard it knocks the wind out of you? Dying, Jaina. I think I just mixed up King of the Hill and Martin Lawrence in the same thing. I did not mean to.